That's so
Bill.
funny.
So the entire yard was nothing but tombstones
Oh,
everywhere.
God. I
And
remember this vividly because I would like come in to see what you were doing. I'd be like, Bill, what the fuck?
No,
are
no,
you
I'd be like, hey, Alex, watch this, and you'd be looking at the screen, and then there's Sims just laying in the front yard, and then satellite comes down.
Yeah, I'd be like, what?
Oh, yeah.
And then you could sell the satellite for a lot of money.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. You could do that.
The problem with that house, though, was because ghosts would reappear where they died, that house would lag so bad because all the ghosts would just be everywhere. It was the most ridiculous thing ever, and like eventually it got to the point where I could no longer use that lot because it was the second I went on it, the game would crash. Because the cheat. Hey guys, I'm Bill, a one-time Instagram blogger and now a podcaster.
And I'm Alex, the chaotic neutral,
And together we are the Gaming and Collecting Podcast
a brother-sister duo,
that talks about gaming.
and also anime.
And don't forget the collecting, sometimes.
Ah, forget it. We're just a nostalgia podcast at this point.
But anyways, guys, thanks for joining us as we discuss the games that shaped us. So, this is normally where I'd say, how you been? But we actually have a guest this time, so I'd like them to introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Liv. I'm one of the co-hosts of Between Two Gamers. I co-host that with my best friend Frui, who lives in the UK and sadly isn't a simmer, so he is not here today. But I am very excited to be here, so thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
So I guess now I'll say, how have you guys been?
Very good. I've been playing a lot of Hades, which has been
Nice.
my
Oh, nice.
obsession lately.
I've played a bit of that. I've been meaning to get more into it, because I really liked one of their previous games, Bastion, which was kind of a similar style. So I've been meaning to pick that one up for a little bit now. I've been on a Last of Us 2 binge, so that's been my
Yay!
Yep.
Yay!
It's been kind of like usually we're doing our anime stuff, but I've been playing Last of Us Part 2, and Alex, you've been playing a certain game.
Yes, I've been playing One Piece Odyssey nonstop. Yep.
It's been pretty fun.
Yeah.
Other than
And I
that,
beat Pokemon, that too.
oh yeah, you did beat
Yeah, I did beat Pokemon.
Violet, right?
Yeah.
Was your experience a buggy mess? Like, is it Violet and Scarlet that launched really terribly?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think when I was playing it, they patched out quite a bit, but then there was still some I'm like, oh, like, there's this one point where my Pokemon just, like, I saw it go, and it instantly just fell off a cliff. And then the whole battle was just, like, it just wasn't there. But I...
The best part was I was playing Last of Us at the time, and all of a sudden I hear Alex go, Bill! Bill! And I'm like, what happened? She's like, she's dying on the couch, and she's like, my Pokemon fell off the cliff, and it's gone. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, but other than that, though, it's been a pretty eventful week. Me and Alex have still been working at the golf ball factory.
Oh, yeah. It was one of those crazy weeks where all the cleaning had to happen, and all the fancy people came in, and it was like, oh, panic. But we made it through.
Yeah.
Persevered.
We
Yep.
did.
But yeah, so anyone else have any other things they'd like to discuss before we get into our topic, or?
Any shows we're watching, or?
I'm caught up in The Way of the House Husband anime, finally.
Oh, I've been wanting to watch that.
I've heard that's really good. Like I've gotten it recommended to me multiple times.
Yeah, so how they do it is because the chapters are so short, they'll do multiple chapters in one episode. It'll be like 10 or 15 of them. And for whatever
Nice.
reason, season 2, they released the first 5 episodes, and then they're going to release the next 5 afterwards, so I'm waiting. But I love The Way of the House Husband because he makes everything so serious, but like he's just cleaning.
Nice. That's on my list. I've been reading a bit of a manga called Sakamoto Days, which is it's kind of like about this he's like a retired like mafia guy, but now he just kind of lives with his like wife and kids and like owns like this like little shop, but he still has to deal with all the people coming because he's a former mafia guy. It's really funny. It's like a little kind of nonsense kind of manga, but I really enjoy it.
Oh, please send me that title. I'm gonna love that
I'll send it to you after the pod.
for sure.
But I guess after that, I guess we should break into our topics. So one of the ideas we've had with the show has been when me and Alex first started, we were very awkward and robotic. And
Yeah.
some of our early episodes we look back on and while we don't hate them, we're kind of like, we could have done that a lot better.
We cringe quite a bit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cringe.
And one of our first topics of discussion was actually The Sims. And The Sims is a franchise that I think me and Alex have pretty much grown up with since,
Yeah.
God, I don't even remember how young we were at the time. Probably around like when we were like 6 or 7,
Yeah.
I want to say.
Same.
But I guess to give it a little history now, The Sims has been around for, God, 23 years. That's
That's
insane.
kind of crazy to think about.
Really?
Yeah, because the original game first released in February 4th, 2000.
Oh.
23 years ago. Well, actually, just about 23 years. We're almost there.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
And
crazy.
the game was the creation of the studio named Maxis and its founder, Will Wright. And the original idea for the game was actually going to be called, the game was going to be called Dollhouse. And the whole idea was you were basically like, you were controlled, you were basically playing in this virtual dollhouse. And then the game kind of expanded from his previous title, SimCity, into this life simulator, which pretty much became, I think at the time, the biggest PC game ever made. Like it definitely overshadowed Doom, which before that I believe was probably the biggest. And it's since become this massive franchise that is probably one of the main reasons why EA bought Maxis shortly after. So I guess to continue on, I'll start with you, Liv. What was your first experience with The Sims?
So I was introduced to The Sims from my neighbor, actually. And she was like, oh, you got to play this. So I remember her bringing over the very first Sims. And back then when they did like the expansion packs, it didn't, you would bring over the disc, download it, but you didn't have to put in the base game to play it. Mm-hmm. So I didn't actually buy a Sims game for myself until probably The Sims 2 when they figured out that everyone was just passing around the discs and only so yeah, I was a part of that problem. And as soon as she showed me this game, I was hooked, even though it was very basic in the beginning, but man, as soon as I got that disc, I was into the series for sure.
So for me and Alex, it was actually kind of a similar situation. We had a neighbor at the time. We didn't get introduced with the PC version, though. We actually were introduced with the PS2, GameCube, Xbox console version, which was a similar game, but it was heavily watered down due to console limitations.
Yeah.
And it had kind of like this like overarching story that they kind of tried to put into like make up for the lack of content that was stripped out of it. And I remember like seeing our neighbor play that, and I was thinking like, I just kind of was like perplexed by it at first. I was like, they're just playing a game that's basically real life. And then it hit me when I watched a few more minutes. I was like, that's actually kind of cool. I kind of want to play this. And that was actually one of the first real times where we ran into the first case of the rating system, because our mother wouldn't buy us the game because it was rated T.
Yeah.
That's funny. My parents, they're not gamers at all. So when I would ask for a game growing up, they would just get it. They didn't know. So I played GTA at a very young age, even because my parents were like, oh, what is this? Who cares? Yeah. So I was playing Sims and they were woohooing and I was like 6. So.
Oh,
no. The funny part is, though, this gets into a bit more of our story. So because we could not play The Sims because it was rated T, our first actual Sims games that we owned was the Herb Sims in the City for the Nintendo DS.
That game.
Because it was rated E instead of T.
Yep.
And it was?
Yeah, the DS version was. The console version was not.
Okay. Yeah, because I would not expect it. I was swallowing swords in that game. That doesn't sound like rated E for everyone.
Nope.
And the Black Eyed Peas were there.
Yeah, they were my besties.
And they recorded Simlish versions of their songs, which are the greatest things ever.
And you found them on Spotify, right?
Yeah, they're all on Spotify. I discovered that yesterday. But I guess go in a sort of roundabout way. Eventually, our parents kind of loosened up on the rating thing because they
Yeah.
realized this is just life. There's nothing really that sinister going on here.
Yeah.
And we got a PC copy of The Sims 1. It was like the deluxe edition pack, so it had Sims 1 base and then the Live in Large expansion pack, I think, was included.
Mm-hmm.
And I still remember that was like the first time I put a real PC game, because before that we had mostly played like Putt Putt and like Freddy Fish.
Barbie games.
Yeah. So this was like the first real video game. And I remember the opening cinematic for it is still like one of the coolest things, where it showed like the house being built. Um, and it would kind of like showcase what the game was. And I just remember like being like mesmerized by it. I got over the like real fast about how like dated it looked and how like simplistic it was, because I was just like, this is like the coolest thing ever. You're like simulating real life, even though it's not realistic at all. And I remember because then Alex would borrow the game from me occasionally, and she liked to just build stuff.
Yeah. I just like
Which
to
was-
build the house and then abandon the family and then move on to a new house.
That's how my girlfriend plays it. She's the builder, and I'm the person that downloads all the houses off the gallery, because if I try to build something, it's a rectangle. But I'm there for making my own very complex storylines, which I'll save for a little later.
Nice.
Yeah.
I still remember Sims 1 is fun to look back at, although it's probably my least favorite to revisit, just based off of its limited nature, because unlike later games, The Sims 1 is very basic. Like, it's it's isometric. The houses are still pre-rendered backgrounds. Like, there's no 3D. The only 3D models are the human, like the Sims. And it was very limited. Like, Sims could get married, but they'd have children who were basically glorified objects. They couldn't grow up. They'd be kind of stuck. And it was very basic, but there was definitely core ideas that they would incorporate. And the expansion packs were probably the most interesting aspect, because that's really where the game truly expanded outward. Like, you got like the hot date one, where you could go out and like actually go on dates with your partner, or you could go on vacation, or everyone's favorite, the Sims Unleashed, where you could get pets. And the pets in Sims 1 were horrifying, because they would literally overrun your house and destroy everything.
Oh no.
Yes.
They were very unbalanced. I remember the house party one was fun too, because Drew Carey would show up at times for some reason.
Why not?
There was just funny thing. The one thing I'll say about Sims 1 was it came with like this program called the Sims like Creator Studio, where you could make your own custom Sims. And you could get really creative. Like, I've seen like Duke Nukem like designs that you could throw in there, and like all sorts of goofy stuff. But Sims 1 in itself, I mean, obviously it was like a cultural phenomenon. Like, this blew up and like it completely overshadowed the Sim City series. Basically all the Sim games that came before it, and literally became probably Maxis's biggest creation of all time.
Yeah, I think I played some of the SimCity games. I can't remember like which one it was, but I think because my neighbor and I played that's why she ended up showing me The Sims. But I really did enjoy building. I built up a city, and then you could do natural disasters, and then I would just destroy everything. And then I was like, oh no, well, the city's under attack, and there would be like aliens coming down and all that stuff. Oh, I miss those games now I think of it.
I remember SimCity 4 just because that game was so like heavily designed that like no PC could run it at the time. Because it was like, it had like this full 3D engine, but it was so zoomed out that like anytime you tried to do anything, the game would just like slow down to like 2 frames per second. And it's like, this is fun, but I can't play it.
Oh no.
So before Sims 2 came out, there actually was, like I had mentioned before, the console version of Sims 1. They actually made a standalone sequel to that called The Sims Bustin' Out, if anyone remembers that.
I loved that game. I love that game so much.
I loved the whole like the storyline where like this like millionaire would just like steal your property, and you'd have to like do like little missions to get him back.
Oh man, you start out at your mom's house, and then depending on your job, you get to live at different locations. I remember living at Dudley's house. He was a pig and had a party every night. And one bedroom was really nice and the other bedroom was really crappy. So you had to go to bed before Dudley if you wanted to have the nice thing. But you're always like pissed off in the game because he parties all night long and he's a slob. I wanted to get out of that guy's house so bad.
He was the first house you'd go to in the PS 2 version of Sims 1 as well, and like you literally show up and half the house is burnt down. Like it was the funniest thing.
I also lived at the Haunted Mansion and the gym. Those are two iconic ones I remember as well.
Yeah, it was. I love that, like how the console versions they knew they couldn't like fit the game on the console like properly, so they kind of made their own game like with the same core ideas, but then they'd put in like these fun little stories to like keep it to make it feel like worthwhile to play, which I always thought was great.
And you had to make your kids super average if you wanted them to live in the house forever. If your kid was dumb and failing, they got taken away to boarding school or military school. And if your kid had an A average, like they would take them to the gifted school. So you would just keep popping out babies, and then you would have to do like, okay, do your homework Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Don't do it Tuesday, Thursday, or else you're not going to be my kid anymore. Because it didn't invent the concept of teenagers.
Yeah, because the kids literally like they just get born and then they just stay. They never like change after that. It's like such a weird like idea, but at the same time, it's like you kind of like you're like, okay, this was the first of its kind, so I guess we'll give them a little leeway there. I always remember too in Sims 1 how like the sound effects and like the background music was like some of the scariest shit you'd ever see in a game.
Yeah.
Like the fight, whenever the house caught fire, it was like the evilest sounding music.
And then they had the robbers that would come in with their like ray guns. I missed those in the later games.
Yeah. My favorite too was some of the items in like Sims 1 were just wacky, like the firework dispenser that you could light off in the house and it would most likely set your house on fire. That was always fun to me. I remember trying to start a house party too, like always would end like badly. Like you'd get all these people to show up and they'd all just kind of stand there and not do anything. And then you just like
what
everyone
do you mean? That sounds like a normal party to me. No.
I'd always laugh though, because like the whole goal of the house party like expansion pack was you had to get like a high party rating, so then like a celebrity would show up, usually Drew Carey for whatever reason. And I always remember though, because anytime I try to start a party, like everyone would show up, they just kind of stand there and then everyone would leave pissed off at each other, and I'm like, I don't think I'm doing it right.
Whoops.
So Sims 1 is a cultural phenomenon, but I think most people's opinion, the definitive Sims game of all time was The Sims 2.
Had the best expansion packs.
Oh yeah.
And I think the best overall just design in general, I'd want to say. So do you guys remember the original like ad for The Sims 2?
Yes.
I know the cover art very well, but no, I don't remember the ad.
So I remember it from The Sims 1 Making Magic. It had a trailer for The Sims 2, like, because this is back when PC games came with like trailers and stuff all the time. And it actually had the trailer for Sims 2, and I always remember it for being like, it was like super wacky. Like it started out with like a Sims 1 model, and then suddenly like his model would just like morph into the Sims 2 one. Like he'd get like full fingers and stuff.
Yeah, it
and,
wouldn't
like,
just be like this blockhead anymore.
Yeah. And his like eyes pop out. And he's like, oh, I'm a high definition PS2 era model now. And the funniest part is the whole gimmick of the ad was it starts off with the main sim, and he basically goes through his entire life. Like he's trying to meet a girl, like get married, have children, and then it ends with he's like an adult. And the whole joke is that the family is a train wreck the entire way through, because that's just how the Sims is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, going into Sims 2 though, I remember like when that game first came out, like we couldn't run it on our PC because our PC was like a potato back in the day.
I love Sims 2. I liked when you would like the mom or whoever would be pregnant, and then the kid would fall out of the sky and you would catch it.
Yep.
That was great.
Or if you got the alien baby, it would just pop out of the little crystal thing, and like it would just come out of nowhere. And the sim would be, because usually it's a male sim, the sim would kind of like look at it like, I don't know what to do with this, but then you'd kind of see its face, he'd be like, oh, I love it. I'm gonna keep it.
I also like that they couldn't understand like traveling mechanics because you could leave the
Yeah.
house for 3 days and come back and it's still 12 on a Monday. So you
Yeah.
have like this whole life and then come back and be like, haha, I time traveled because I went to the club for 3 days.
You could also like break the system. Like if you missed work 3 days, if you just ignore the phone, they'll never fire you.
Oh, in Sims 2, if you with the pets expansion, you could send your pets to work, which was funny.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I didn't know you
my
could
dog
do
was like
that.
a model or something for
Oh.
commercials, and the car comes and picks you up. They wouldn't leave. The car would come and pick you up, and the dog would just go out the front door and then go to work and then come back.
He was bringing the paychecks.
It was.
So Sims 2 for me, like, I love the setup of that game right away. Like, you get to the main screen and then you get these 3 like locations you can visit. There was Pleasance View, which I believe was supposed to be the same place as Sims 1.
Mm-hmm.
Strangetown, which was the new fun area for Sims 2. And then there was a third one, which I always forget the name of because it's like the least interesting of the 3. It was another green grassy area though.
Uh-huh.
And I liked, my favorite part was each area had their own unique like pre-made Sims. And they all had their own fun little storylines that weren't completely in your face. Like you didn't have to like interfere with them, but you could kind of like follow them along and see how their plot progressed or completely fell apart depending on how your playstyle was. I also loved the like super expanded like building and like creation mechanics in Sims 2. Because the Sims 2 creation screen, like I was talking to Alex yesterday about this, the song that plays when you're either building or making Sims is like permanently stuck in my head forever because I spent so much time making different Sims and making different houses in that game.
I also really liked being rejected in The Sims 2 because you could just call someone on the phone and they'll be like, oh, I can't come over, my phone's broken. Okay, I'm talking to you on the phone. Why did you say that? And they took that out in the later games and I just thought it was so funny.
Yeah, Sims 2 had a ton of like really funny like in jokes that like don't make any sense at all by today's standards, but like they were just really funny for the time. Like the I'm trying to think of another great one because Sims 2 had like probably the most variety in terms of like things you could do with your Sims.
Oh yeah.
When I think of the expansion packs, like Sims 2 had a ton of them.
Generations. That was so good.
I always remember like because like I think the nightlife one you could just get vampires for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Your Sims could become vampires. They could become like werewolves at one point, like plant people. All sorts of weird
people.
It was so weird, but so awesome.
Like the seasons one was the plant people.
Yeah.
Certain. Yeah.
And the way you would become a plant person is you had to like overdose on like gardening like chemicals and like you would just become like this like plant monster. And you could just like reproduce infinitely with like plant babies everywhere. It was really bizarre, but awesome at the same time. Did anyone ever give their Sim the grilled cheese aspiration?
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember that.
It was fun because so Sims 2 introduced the aspiration system where each Sim had their own like kind of like it was like a set of goals that would like apply to them the best. And the whole like idea was like each one would be like a different thing. Like there was like the outgoing party Sims, there was the romance Sims, family oriented, and then there was a couple bonus ones. Like there was the pleasure one, which came with nightlife, and then the grilled cheese one, which was the joke one. And originally you could only get the grilled cheese by if your sanity was very low and you used this one machine that was designed to change your aspiration. If your sanity was too low, it would give you the grilled cheese aspiration as a joke. And the whole gimmick of the grilled cheese aspiration was every single one of your like goals had to do with grilled cheese.
Yes, I remember that because I was like, what is this?
I always thought it was the funniest thing because I was like, oh, okay, this Sim's just going to be the grilled cheese guy now for the rest of his life. I remember that. I remember University was probably my first like expansion pack where I really realized just how expansive the game could be.
Yeah. That one was great for two reasons. One, if you just wanted to get rid of kids and keep having them, you could just dump them into the university
Send
like
them to school.
Dropbox, and then
Yep.
like when you open up that expansion pack, you could like pick through all the hundreds of people you kind of abandoned. But my favorite thing was I would do the max motives and I would type my term paper up. I'd make them stay up 24 hours or 48 hours straight, get the paper done, and then I would just party the whole time.
I loved like I spent way too much time in like the college like section of the game because I just like building up the dorms and then like just letting them roam free. I remember I had my sim because of the way that it works. You can go into build mode and like you can just grab whatever you want from the dorm. So I just put everything in my sim's room and no, everyone else had nothing. Because you can get away with it, so it's fun.
Yeah.
What was another? Did you guys ever experience like the business one?
I definitely had it, but I feel like I didn't really play with the business one until like Sims 4.
Okay. Sims 2 open for business. I tried to figure it out. It was really complicated. Like you'd have to get the Sims to like you'd have to like set up the store and then like get people to show up. And I always was like could never get them to bargain because my like motives were always too low, so no one would ever buy anything. I always remember that. I'm trying to think what the weirdest one was. I think that might have been Apartment Life.
I liked Apartment Life. That
Apartment
was
Life was interesting, but they also
Yeah.
just kind of made it also the magic one for some reason.
Yeah, it also had. Well, wasn't it like the wizard? It had wizard and witches. And that
Yeah,
was the
so
apartment. Yeah, that's what it was.
The main gimmick was like apartments and like living in like apartments rather than like houses.
Yeah.
But it also included like all the magic stuff from like making magic for some reason.
Huh.
Why
Like, it was
not?
a weird combo. Like
Yeah, they really mixed them up early on.
I always thought it was interesting they would do like a magic expansion pack every time just as like a bonus like thing that was completely it completely jumped away from the realism that they were trying to have at first.
Yeah.
But then it would just kind of like be like, oh, and here's magic. Let's just have fun with that. Because I always remember back in Sims 1, the making magic one, what would happen was this guy would just show up at your house and just drop off a box on your front doorstep. And you'd open it up and it would pop out this like magic wand, this like spell book, and then just a hole that led to the magic town. I was always like, that's so random. I could never figure out the magic stuff though. It was always like too complicated.
Yeah, I really don't play with a lot of the paranormal packs because like I'm there to play my story out. Like what I like about The Sims is I could go in and have a plot line and I know what I'm doing and I could just play with that. So I appreciate all the people that build stuff that let me download it. Really love that. And about Sims 2, that's where you could go online and download like the custom clothing and stuff. I remember I was really into that.
First computer virus.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's how I got my first virus. I was trying to download like cool like designs for Sims, and that's how I got virus.
That's so funny.
Yep. I'll always remember because I remember trying to explain it to my mom and be like, I was just trying to download stuff for The Sims. I didn't know what I was doing. I swear.
Yeah, I remember that too because our mom was just perplexed. Like she had no idea what to say to that.
Yeah.
She's like, out of all the things you get viruses for, like The Sims, really?
Yep. Whoops. I didn't know what I was doing. But then again, I was like, how old at the time?
Well, Sims 2 came out in 2004, so you were probably around like 7, I want to say, maybe. Yeah. I don't.
No,
that's probably off.
No, that's off. That's off. All right. I do math at work. I don't want to do it right now. But anyways, I was not old enough to understand. I also barely used the computer. Besides, I was like, Bill would download stuff for me. I'd be like, Bill, can you download this for me? And he'd be like, oh, okay. And then he'd do it. But this was like, okay, I can't bother Bill, so I'm going to try and do this. And it didn't work out.
Also, The funniest part about this was Alex didn't actually own a copy of The Sims.
Nope.
She actually was just leeching off my expansion packs the whole time.
That's what I did. I didn't buy my first Sims game until Sims 3. I was using all my neighbors. She'd just give me one of her expansion discs. I just put that one in.
So she would always just use like the one that. So the way Sims 2 I remember worked was like there was the one disc that was like your boot disc, and they any of the other ones could go to like someone else. So like
Mm.
I think it was the one that would be the boot disc was like the newest version. I think for
Mhm.
me it was like I had like the best of business collection or whatever it was called,
Yeah.
and that was considered like the most modern disc. So that would be my boot disc. So I just gave Alex Apartment Life, and she just
Yep.
used Apartment Life's disc
Yep.
because it was the second newest one, and she could play everything else other than that. I think the only thing she couldn't play was Open for Business because I had that disc,
Yeah.
which was
Yeah.
funny.
Didn't really
And-
change much for me, so.
So The Sims 2 also had, I think, like the most like spin-off versions out of
Yeah.
any Sims game,
Yes.
because there was the PS2, GameCube, Xbox version, which similar to the Sims 1 games had like its own story you would follow.
Yeah, it was weird.
I remember you could control the Sims directly in that game with the controller. You didn't have to use like the point and click mechanics, which
Mhm.
was fun. There was the DS version where you were a
Yes.
hotel manager.
The
Oh, I don't
Ratman.
think I played that one.
Yes.
So that one, because the DS could not handle like this kind of game at all, basically the whole what the game is you end up in Strange Town, like your car breaks down,
Mhm.
and you just kind of inherit this hotel, and you basically run you run
Yep.
the hotel.
That's so Sims. I love that. No, I haven't heard of that one.
And there's
It-
aliens.
It uses a real-time clock similar to Animal Crossing, so
Oh,
like you would
yeah.
have to play it like day by day, and like you couldn't like go through it in like in like one sitting. You would actually have to like you'd hit a point where it'd be like, oh, you got to wait for this room to be built, so that
Mm.
overnight your Sims the hotel would get like a new room built or something like that.
Yeah.
The only
was-
Sims game I bought on DS was Herb Sims in the City because I loved it for the GameCube. Please bring back Herbs. But it was so drastically different. I was disappointed, and I said I will never buy The Sims on the DS
So-
ever again.
It's actually funny. Like me and Alex are probably going to cover this game separately later, but we played the hell out of the DS version of
Oh,
Herbs.
yeah. We did.
I played the hell out of the GameCube version of Herb Sims in the City.
Yeah.
I loved going gambling. I liked being a model and then a sword swallower at night. Oh,
Mm.
the game was great.
I just love the whole like concept of like they were like, let's just do the Sims but make it strictly cities.
Mm.
And I loved how every like like house you would go or like district you would go to would like just be like this like condensed area that was completely different from the others.
And all you had to do was change your clothes to be cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to get in the you want to get in the VIP room, you have to look the part.
Yes.
It was just funny how like different games could be back in the day like that. Like nowadays, the console version of The Sims is literally just the PC version. Like
Yeah.
there's
I
no
don't think
difference
they really
at all.
break out into anything like that anymore. Yeah.
I love the goofy spin-offs and stuff.
There was the Castaway franchise.
Oh yeah,
where it was
Sims
like
2
you were the
Castaway, where it's a
Sims.
survival game for some reason.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
tried that. I vaguely remember it. I don't think I got too into it,
Yeah.
but I was like, I tried.
I had the DS version, and I just remember I got stuck at one point, and I was like, I'm not enjoying this, so why am I trying?
There's
So
also
I just
the,
didn't pick it up ever again.
There's also the PSP version of Sims 2, which is an adventure game for some reason.
Oh yeah, you had that, and you would play it all the time.
I have it
I
on
do
my
like the shoulder creep of like, what you playing? I'll play too.
I have it on my Vita, and it's the funniest thing ever because it's like this like action adventure game where you follow this like strict plot, and like there's like barely any Sims like stuff other than the fact that you're in the Sims world.
Huh.
But the story is really oddly engaging, so that's why I like playing it so much. It's kind of like imagine if The Sims was an RPG for some reason. It's funny. It's funny why like they would go that direction, but I guess it was just because The Sims was on top of the world at that point, and they were like trying to get it everywhere.
Trying to sell as much Sims as they could.
I mean, there's not really a competitor for it.
No.
Not especially not then. Like now, there's at least other simulation style games, but
Mm.
at the time, like it was kind of its own niche.
Mm.
So Sims 2 was probably to this day the biggest one of all time.
Yeah.
But actually, quickly before we move on, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Woo!
And we're back. So after The Sims 2, I remember like the lead up to Sims 3 being kind of like it was weird for the time because they were like hyping it up as like this is like the next gen Sims game. Like
Mm.
this is going to be like the next evolution. Little did we know at the time, Maxis was no longer making The Sims, and they had moved on to I think they were doing Spore by this point.
Mm.
That game, I remember buying it, and that game didn't work on my PC at the time. It didn't
Aw.
run. So I've never played Spore, but I had it, and I had the nice. It came with like a really cool hardcover thing, but I was too young at the time to realize like I just thought the game didn't work.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
no, it was that game's hard to run. Like I always remember, like you also needed an online connection. It was weird.
Yeah.
But anyways, going back to Sims 3, so Maxis had moved on to Spore by this point.
Yeah.
And EA had set up their own in-house studio called the at the time they were called the Sims Studio. Now they're just called Maxis because they've replaced the original Maxis at this point. But their whole project was they were making The Sims 3, and The Sims 3 was going to go in a very different direction from The Sims 2. Because I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, "Oh wow, The Sims can leave their house."
They can leave, and you can see them leave. Oh my god!
That's
I
something
remember-
I really liked about it. How it was open world, and you could switch between Sims like on different lots, and you could still play as them. And then when you would send them off to school or a date, they had the drop down menu, and you could select like what they did. And I thought that was such a great thing because like when your Sims would leave in Sims 2, it was kind of like, okay, I'll see you when you get back. I hope you have a great day.
The clock and
Yeah, but this time it's like, oh, I could still like interact with them. And my favorite job in The Sims 3 was the athlete one because then your family could go to the game and watch you play. And that was so cool.
I always remember too, like there was some like weird like odd things that would happen with that too. Like I remember like at one point like one of the Sims was pregnant and like the baby was coming, so it's like, okay, we got to get to the hospital, and then like the wife gets in the car and drives. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you
to the
still
hospital?
home? Meanwhile, the other Sims on the arcade machine in the corner not caring. I'm like, no, this isn't right. So funny things that could happen. I remember like when this game first came out, people were like, why do they look so weird? I'm like, because they're realistic. They're supposed to look.
Yeah.
I guess people like the more cartoony look from Sims 2 and didn't like the realism at the time. I didn't really care that much because I was like, oh, more Sims.
I like being able to make a band in this game. That was probably when they introduced the I forget the proper title of it, but it was the celebrity one. And then they added that you could like create your own jobs. So we would have band practice and then we could go and sign up to do gigs at different places and then you could go and watch them. That I've really missed that in Sims 4 and I just feel like it's not coming since this game's been out since like I think 2014 or something like that. But I loved being a rock star.
That was fun. I loved like you would visit like a lot and you could just explore like the area because the maps were huge. Like in
they
Sims 3.
were. Oh, and the firefighter career. I loved being a firefighter. And you could also have horses. So his name was Jack. He was the chief of the firefighter department, and I would ride my horse to work. And then when the fire came, I'd be like, okay, buddy, stay here. And I'd get in the fire truck. And then you got to do like the actual quest. You had to like break down the doors and get the people out. And then I'd come back to the firehouse. And then I'd take my horse and go to the equestrian competitions. Jack had so many talents. I loved him.
Jack was a busy guy.
He's so busy.
I love too how every expansion pack like literally like just expanded the world and made it so you could like do more stuff. It would actually feel like an actual life sim, not just you're on the lot. oh, they're going to go work. You're not going to see any of that, but we can assure you that's what they're doing. I love that aspect. Like, it took everything Sims 2 made awesome and just kind of like made it, I don't want to say better, because I think both games have their strengths and weaknesses, but it definitely like took the series in a logical like direction which I thought it was going to go.
I love that you could rotate furniture on an angle. That was
Yeah.
one of my favorite parts.
There's the builder in the group.
And like I noticed, like Sims 3 versus Sims 4, the options for decorating your house were so expansive in Sims 3. Like going down to like you could take the wallpaper pattern, but then you could edit it further, edit the pattern, edit the colors, and you can't really do that as much now with the newest version. And I miss that. I had the most decorative houses ever with like custom furniture, colors, and everything, and I miss it. That was my favorite part of Sims 3.
You had so much freedom in Sims 3. I think that was like the my favorite aspect of it, because you could literally do anything at times. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I like being able to sign your kids up for after school clubs. I think they had that in Sims 2, but Sims 3 really had like a lot of different options, and you could join more than one. So if you wanted to do music class on like Monday, Wednesday, you could still sign up for another club on Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
And Sims 4 locks you out of that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though they don't overlap, my kid could be in Boy Scouts and also drama club. Just why can't I do that?
I can't. I know, especially because in real life, I mean, kids, they play soccer and they do Boy Scouts. What the heck? Like, let's do both. We want to do things.
My other favorite thing too was they added well, they didn't really add more phases of life, but they kind of expanded the phases of life for The Sims, so you actually felt like you could spend more time in like the different eras. Because I remember in Sims 2, the child era went by really fast, and then like you kind of like you'd already be like young adults by the time you really got to know them, and then they're just off in their own world,
going to college.
I feel like Sims 3 really like expanded that more properly. Like you actually felt like they were growing up, not just you reached the next level in the game.
Yeah, in Sims 3, it was whatever the expansion pack was for adding the school clubs and stuff, but I like that you could go to prom and you could ask someone to prom, and then based on like how many friends you had in the game, you could win prom king or queen, and I was just like, I love this!
Aww.
No, it was such a fun game, and I remember
we gotta
then...
talk about the music.
Oh yeah, Alex wanted to talk about this one.
For some reason, the Sims 3 music, they like sold a lot of the music, or it's like public domain. But if you watch a lot of reality TV shows, you'll be like, why do I recognize this? And you'll be like, this is Sims music. Why am I hearing Sims music?
Really?
I love my trash TV, and I love my Dance Moms. I know it's other garbage and horrible, but I love it. And there was one time they were doing this dance with like this big spoon, and I'm listening to music, and it's like, and I'm like, this is Sims music. And like at the time, and it was very recently after Sims 3 came out too. So like it was very quick when it happened, because Dance Moms is like 10 years old at this point. Like,
yeah, isn't that girl in jail?
Yeah, I think so. I think she committed like tax fraud or something.
Yeah, I think she's in jail.
Yeah. And like I'm like listening to it, I'm like, why do I hear Sims music? But then like I was watching just other reality TV shows, because I love my garbage. And like I'm just like, why is there Sims music everywhere? And for some reason, the Sims 3 music, they just sold all of it, and it's just it's background music in like a lot of TV shows. So
that's funny.
Listen carefully the next time you're watching a show, because you might be like, I know this song. It's from The Sims 3.
So it's funny because Sims 3 felt like it went on forever. To the point where when Sims 4 got announced, I was kind of like, oh yeah, Sims 4.
Yeah.
So Sims 4, I think, was probably the most controversial Sims launch to date.
It launched pretty broken, and that was actually the last game that I bought on disc for my PC. It was The Sims 4. I remember I bought the like deluxe version. I went to GameStop and I picked it up, and I was so excited. And it didn't launch with toddlers. And when your kid would age up from a baby to a child, their limbs would go all long, and they looked like an alien, and they would curl over the crib. It was terrifying.
Oh no.
Who okayed that?
Oh
no.
man, it was terrifying, and I was like, "What are we playing?" And there wasn't a whole lot of options and stuff.
Yeah, I remember
Hmm.
pools were missing, like a whole bunch of like stuff that was like standard in base Sims 2 wasn't in the game.
Yeah.
And I remember the controversy actually, it was the controversy of this game combined with the failure of SimCity 2014, I think it was, that actually led to the closure of the original Maxis studio.
Do they still make SimCity games?
I think so.
I don't know.
I know
I'm
EA
just
owns
curious.
the rights. Unfortunately, there's other studios that have made better games, like City Skylines, which is just better. They might. I know EA owns the license still because they're never getting rid of it. I will say though, Sims 4 has improved a lot since that original launch. Like, I still think 3 and 2 are better games, but I have come to accept 4 as a solid entry in the series at this point.
Yeah, I liked the expansion packs from Sims 2 and 3 a lot. And I thought that Sims 4 did a good job of merging Sims 2 and 3 travel. Like, you could go to an area and it's open, but you could also travel to a different world. And then some places, like if you live near a playground, you could just go to the playground and still be on the lot. And I'm curious what they'll do with The Sims 5 when that comes out. But I really liked being able to control all the Sims on different lots in a world. But I don't know how that will work when you also want to change worlds. So I don't really. It would be cool to like have more of an open gameplay in Sims 3, but I also like the idea of going to different worlds. So I don't know how we can get that to work.
Yeah. I have faith in the team because it seems like they are trying their best to improve and like actually expand upon stuff. Because actually, my favorite part about Sims 4 is some of the expansion packs are really creative. Some of them are kind of stupid, but some of them in particular are really awesome. Like, one of my favorites is the like getting together one where it's like you can make little clubs, and like the club mechanics are so fun because you can make the most like specific clubs ever. Like a club that's dedicated to drinking coffee, and that's all you do.
Yeah.
Or the be mean to like be mean to people club or some stupid stuff.
God.
You have traits for that.
There's like literally a club that's like be mean to children. It's like why? But at the same time it's funny. I made like the club that was like it was like the artist appreciation club where we just like show up at places and just examine the artwork that we could find around. Because that's just, I love the stupidity of stuff like that. Like just anything that's dumb, I love messing around with. I'm trying to think of some of the other expansions. I like the tiny homes one. I thought that was kind of cool.
I didn't buy that one.
I got it in a bundle on PSN, I want to say.
Oh, you're playing on console?
I've moved over to PC since because it's just
it's
easier.
Free now, so
yeah. But it's funny because I actually found this game has gotten so like diverse with like the little attributes you can give each sim. It's actually made it a lot harder to actually start relationships in the game because it's like real life now where you have to actually like work for it. It's not like Sims. What's fun about Sims 2 was you could easily manipulate that stuff like to like perfect like relationships because it was based around like small traits. Like there was the likes and dislikes, and basically you just had to make sure two Sims had what the likes and dislikes matched perfectly, and they would just immediately be attracted to each other. Sims 4, on the other hand, though, you actually have to work for that.
It's not easy.
No, it's real life.
I really like the city one for this one because each city has like a different demographic and they have festivals and stuff, and that can tie in if you have seasons, and you can make your own holidays and stuff, which I really liked.
That's cool. I just love they've become a lot more freeing with like what they're like players do too. Like you can literally like the options are completely like endless in this game. Like you can literally like give any sim any item and they won't care. Like there's no barriers or anything that prevent you from like just having fun and doing what you want to do.
This is the first Sims game that I modded. So before I downloaded MCC, which is like basically, do you know what MCC mod is? Where you basically like can change the world around you and control other Sims and stuff. So
Okay.
so like if you wanted to, I use it for population control and make sure it auto populates and fills in like all of the like empty lots and stuff. But before I knew about this, I had to repopulate the town the old fashioned way, where my Sim was a slut. And but I also wanted him to have a family. So the wife would go to work, and he every single day had a different bitch over to like impregnate them. And at one time he had 35 kids, just like different with 8 different people. And and I wanted all the kids to be friends, so I threw this huge party, and then I went to go like make hamburgers because there's too many people, and all the wives found out that I was woohooing all of them, and the huge brawl broke out in the kitchen. So I had to apologize in bed to each one individually, and then everything was fine.
Everything was all set. Yeah.
But then I got MCC and I didn't have to be a whore anymore.
I love The Sims.
I love The Sims so much.
Only in The Sims with that. Like, it's funny. Any other game, that statement is like, what? In The Sims, though, you're just like, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, thank you for MCC. Love that. I don't have to spend all my days being a whore.
Back in like The Sims 2, I used to just spawn random people. Be like, this Sim needs a significant other. Just go into the cheat menu. Spawn human. There we go. That'll work.
I also downloaded basemental drugs and had a weed farm, and it was just selling weed to people. So this is there are some like really crazy mods that people will build, and there's one for school where you could like bring your kid to school, and it's like an active career, so you get to bring them to like each class and everything, which is really cool.
That's cool.
So, but MCC and basemental drugs, that's the mods I have.
So I guess as like a segue now, getting into that stuff, the Sims cheats have always been like some of the funnest things to mess around with in any Sims game.
Oh yeah.
I figured now would be a cool time to talk about some of our favorite like cheating like Sims experiences, because Sims 2 in particular, I remember being like the most chaotic with the cheats because like
there were death cheats.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, we'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
So Sims 2 had like the most broken cheat ever. It was called Bullprop Testing Cheats Enabled True.
Yep.
And literally it was just debug mode. You basically got access to all the developer stuff.
Yeah.
And you could like move like attributes all around. You could just manipulate relationships, change Sims like physical like attributes, just spawn people. You could kidnap people. You could kidnap the mailman.
You can still do that in Sims 4.
Yeah.
Sims 2 is where I remember doing it though, because I always remember being like, oh, there's the mailman. He is now part of this family.
He is mine now.
Or you could just make people related, even though they're not related at all, just by messing around with cheats.
Oh,
yep.
And one of my favorites was the Tombstone of Life and Death.
Which one's this?
In Sims 2, like there was literally a cheat item called the Tombstone of L&D or Life and Death, and all the Tombstone did was you would just click on it, and it would literally be like die by, and then it would have a menu of all the deaths in the game.
Oh yes, and there's also death by flies. I remember. I was like, "What is this?" And it just came.
So in Sims 2, one of my greatest like abominations I ever created was I created this house and I called it the Death House.
Oh god, I remember this.
And it was literally this black, like rustic looking like building that was supposed to look like a haunted house. And I made the Sim that lived there, like I modded it so he had the Grim Reaper costume. And the whole joke was I would just kidnap Sims that walked by and then test out the death cheats.
That's so funny.
So the entire yard was nothing but tombstones everywhere.
God. I remember this vividly because I would like come in to see what you were doing. I'd be like, Bill, what the fuck?
No, I'd be like, hey, Alex, watch this, and you'd be looking at the screen, and then there's Sims just laying in the front yard, and then satellite comes down.
Yeah, I'd be like, what?
Oh yeah.
And then you could sell the satellite for a lot of money.
Oh yeah, I do remember that. You could do that.
The problem with that house though was because ghosts would reappear where they died, that house would lag so bad because all the ghosts would just be everywhere. It was the most ridiculous thing ever, and like eventually it got to the point where I could no longer use that lot because it was the second I went on it, the game would crash
For
because the
good
cheat.
reason.
Because the problem,
The
the
game's
problem,
haunted.
the problem with Sims 2's cheats were the more you messed around with them, the more they would break the game
Yes.
because you're really not supposed to be using the testing cheats. But of course, everyone used them all the time because they were just that fun.
Yes.
But the more you use them, the more the game would break. So by like, after a while, the game would just constantly crash and become this unstable mess. But it was like the funnest stuff ever.
Yep.
So do you
Did you
guys
ever
have any
make, like-
fun cheat stories? Or
I was gonna mention, did you ever make like really deformed Sims? Like make the eyes as big as possible, or like make them like just the most unproportioned people in the world?
Yes.
I remember doing that a lot.
yeah. I remember doing that. I'm trying to think of another one I did. It's funny because like I always say, like there's like three people who play The Sims. There's the people who like just like to actually play the game the right way and like live their lives and like control everything, like basically play the game as it was intended. There's the ones who just like to build houses and make stuff and then ignore
Yes.
the actual game, and then there's the people who just like to be like trolls and like destroy their lives.
Yeah, I go
Or-
through generations, so I'm like, okay, this family's gonna be like terrible, and I'm just gonna
Yeah.
make all their lives hell. But then there's gonna be one kid in the family that wants to break away from tradition. He's gonna go to school and be a lawyer, and he's gonna have such a good cookie cutter life. But then his kid's gonna be super rebellious because he's like, I need more. And I think it was Sims 3. Yeah, I think it was Sims 3, where I had a husband and wife, and one was a cop and one was a robber. And when you would get caught, if you didn't have good enough like mischief skills, you would go to jail. So I'd have the other parent have to like go and bail them out all the time, but they were married. It was like a huge conflict of interest.
Nice.
Star-crossed lovers.
Yes.
So one of my favorite things I like doing in like Sims 2 was I like making like legacy families, and because I love the family tree like thing where like you could actually see like the webs connecting everyone together.
Yeah.
And I remember like I had this one game where like the web was massive, like because I just like basically expanded it out. Like it got to the point where that entire town I think was nothing but just like family members, because I'd move them to this house and then I'd be like, this is their house now.
You must.
But then it got to the point where I'm like,
Oh.
we're out of non-family members. I have to make more now. And just like I was creating random Sims just to throw them in like the bucket and be like, okay, here's more non family Sims.
God.
I remember doing crazy stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Sims 4, if you have such a like big legacy, if the farther you scroll up, it'll just be like not there anymore.
Oh no.
See, Sims 2, like actually, like you could see the entire progression, and it was like nuts. Because I remember I would like expand out. Like at one point, the Grim Reaper was involved with that family because you could literally marry the Grim Reaper if you wanted to.
Why
'Cause
not?
Bull prop was amazing, and you could break
Yep.
everything.
Yes.
Sims 3, the bull prop, well, it wasn't bull prop anymore. It was just called testing cheats enabled. It wasn't nearly as broken, but it was still pretty fun to mess around with.
Yeah, I don't remember any like death cheats from that game.
Nah, they took away all that stuff. Like Sims 2, you could literally just like program weird stuff. Like you could just make every sim alien pregnant if you wanted.
Yeah.
That was another wacky thing in Sims 2. Like if you spent too much time outside on the balcony looking at the stars, you'd get abducted by aliens, and if it was a male sim, they'd come back pregnant,
Yep.
which was always funny to me. I like the alien babies. I thought they were fun.
Yeah, and then I remember in Sims 4, like when you have an alien baby, they have like a really cool bassinet. It's like futuristic.
No.
It was all super fun stuff. I really wish like I could like I want to get like a Windows XP computer at some point just so I can play Sims 2 again. Because unfortunately,
There's no
Windows
way
10
to play it now.
Windows 10 hates The Sims 2 for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I don't know why. So we've kind of covered pretty much everything, Sims wise. Before we start wrapping it up, was there any other like Sims related memories you wanted to talk about, or?
Oh man, I love The Sims. But one of my most traumatic Sims experiences. I shared this on my podcast I think last season. But let me tell you a story about baby Jeremy. Baby Jeremy. This is The Sims 2, where they had butlers. So your butler would come from 8 to 8. But if he was holding your child at that 7:59 mark, he just takes the child and he walks off the lot. And I'm clicking on him, trying to cancel the action, No, boom. I was like, okay, took the kid home. Next day, 8 o'clock in the morning, he does not come back with Jeremy.
Oh no!
He's just gone forever.
Oh no.
Forever.
No. Was he,
And I
like,
like to
removed
think
from
that,
the
like,
family? Like,
he's just gone. So I fired him. Obviously, he stole my kid. So like, it's headcanon for me that like he just couldn't find love, or he was infertile, and he just really just grew attached to Jeremy. He was like, "This is my kid." So I want to think that Jeremy grew up to live a great Sims 2 life. But I just don't have any evidence that he wasn't murdered because I never got him back.
Did he like stay in the family tree? Like he was still like listed
God!
everywhere? Oh, gone
No,
entirely.
God! He literally was feeding my kid at 7:59 and walked off the lot, and I kept clicking on him, trying to cancel the action. He stole Jeremy, and now this was like whenever The Sims 2 came out, so it's been over a decade, and I just can't name a kid Jeremy because I'm afraid that they'll die.
It's gonna happen again.
Yeah!
The butler's gonna take him away.
So that's why I would build the robot butler in Sims 2, because they would just be your slave forever.
Yeah, well, Jeremy, miss him.
You know what was weird about the robot butlers? You could make male and female ones, and then the butlers could like get it on, which was really weird.
You could marry robots in Sims 4.
Yeah,
Oh.
always
Why not?
funny. It's an open game, like there's no like prejudice or anything.
Yeah. Oh, that's my favorite Sims story, even though it was very traumatic.
That's bizarre, but awesome.
Poor baby.
Well, not
this
awesome, but
episode is in
funny.
memorial to baby Jeremy.
I miss
Rest
him.
in peace.
I'm trying to think of some other glitches. Like I had a sim get stuck in the floor once, and then they just stayed there until they died.
Oh, I've had Sims 3. I always had like Sims glitch through the wall, and then I would delete the wall, and then they would just be T-posed. And I can't do anything with this. I can't save you.
See, in The Sims 2, I had one get stuck in the foundation, and I legit could not get them out. So they just kind of stayed there. And I remember like after a while, like the Sims like hygiene would go down, so the stink cloud would appear, and I'd be walking through the floor, and there's just this stink cloud coming through the floor. I'm like, oh, the Sim's still alive. And then the Grim Reaper just shows up, and I'm like, uh-oh. I think he's gone.
In Sims 2, your kids could like go for a run with their parents, and it was in the summer. It was hot. The dad was a professional athlete. This kid's just like fresh out of the womb. I was like, go for a jog with your dad. Passes out on the sidewalk from a heat stroke, and because it's not on the lot, I can't click on the kid. I can't do anything. So kid dies, and child services came. They took away my other children and my dogs, and then I was trying to like reproduce and start the family again. It was like, you cannot have children. I was like, are you kidding me? So that family was a wrap.
Oh no.
It's bizarre how like one little glitch could completely just destroy a family in that
Yeah,
game.
I wasn't allowed to woohoo my wife for a baby. I wasn't allowed to adopt a dog. Rip.
Oh man. I'm trying to think like any other like wacky things that happen. I always
I accidentally killed a dog in Sims 2 as well, which was so sad.
It's tough because they're basically other family members, so you have to like watch them like just like any other.
Snowball died in a snowstorm because he was a puppy, and I didn't know the dog was outside because I couldn't see it, and it was snowy, and he froze to death because he couldn't walk up the stairs.
Oh no.
I always remember like Sims 1, you could one of the weirdest death in Sims 1 was death by guinea pig.
What?
I don't remember this one.
You could have pet guinea pigs in Sims 1, and if you would pet them, occasionally they would bite you, and if you didn't do anything about it, you'd die from like an infection.
I love The Sims so much.
Oh, the deaths were always wacky.
Remember the cow plant?
Oh, I remember the cow plant.
Yeah, and if
Hopefully.
they would have like a birthday cake in their mouth, and if you tried to grab it, they eat you.
Yep.
And then they'd produce this like serum, which would actually like take years off. It would like make them younger. It
Yes,
was
I
like the
remember that.
the fountain of youth. That's how you got rid of the Sims you didn't want anymore.
Oh, I had a Sim die at his wedding. In Sims 4. So in Sims 4, if you had the playful moodlet for too long, it goes to hysteria. And I didn't realize. I was like, he's just having a good time telling jokes. Dead from hysteria at the wedding. And then the Grim Reaper came. He kills him. And everyone's crying. Grim Reaper goes to the bar, starts pouring drinks. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
What does Grim Reaper in Sims 4 is like the biggest like dick,
Troll.
but also the funniest guy ever. I had a Sim die in a fire, and the Grim Reaper shows up. He just shakes his head. He's like, ugh. And then all of a sudden, he starts warming his hands on the fire, and I'm like, you dick. I'm like, you dick.
Oh my god.
They gave him a full personality in that one, though. Like, he's a funny guy.
This is what you're missing out on when you're building, Alex. These stories.
I know. All right, I gotta get back into Sims 4. I gotta get back. Maybe I'll play some after
That's
this.
her inner engineer just wanting to, like, build stuff.
I love building stuff. It's so fun. I keep the family sometimes. Sometimes I'll play around with it, and then sometimes I'll move into someone's house and I'll be like, with like a pre-existing family, I'll be like, this is extreme home makeover. Your house sucks. I'm gonna make it better, and then just redecorate.
And then evict the family.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've done stuff like that. I also did like this homeless challenge where I lived in a tent on an empty lot, but then I would go to the bar and try to find someone to love me even though I had nothing to offer. And I picked someone that was older and I got married to them and then I moved in and like 2 days later they died and I was living in a mansion.
So gold diggers.
The Sims.
Sims! And that's the Sims.
My favorite too is like the wacky stuff. Like, you have a house, everything's going fine. You remove the toilet, and they just lose their minds.
Yeah.
The funniest thing ever, because it's like they can live without everything, but you get rid of the toilet, and that's the end of the world. Like, they don't know what to do. I used to do like the challenge where like you did like the no house challenge, where you just had like furniture but no house. And your lot was just literally looked like a freaking dump, like a dump of just stuff. There was one wall because you needed a wall for the toilet. That was about it. So
True.
just this one random wall with the toilet, and everything else is just everywhere else. The fun stuff. Only in The Sims can you get away with like this, and it's completely normal.
I know.
Any other game, and they're like, "What are you playing?" So I think that's about it. Any other final thoughts before we wrap this up?
R.I.P. Jeremy. We wish you
R.I.P.
well.
Poor Jeremy.
So I guess to wrap it up, what would you say your favorite Sims game was to go around?
Ooh, that's tough.
Bill, you go first.
For me personally, it's Sims 2. Favorite spin-off though is still the Herb Sims of the City for DS. I love that game. I speedrun it because I know how to speedrun it.
Does that have a story? How do you speedrun it? What do you mean by that?
It has a so it's like an adventure RPG as well.
Oh, okay.
I know exactly the plot, like, and exactly where everything is, so I like to speedrun it every now and then, see how fast I can beat it.
That's funny.
I beat it in a day once. That was my like quickest playthrough.
Dang.
I could be recency biased, but I really like. Maybe it's because I can mod the game, but I like all of the control I have over Sims 4. But I have very fond memories of Sims 2, even though most of them involve death.
It sounds like a normal Sims playthrough, I'd say. You know,
Yeah.
so, I'd say, I mean, I also have very fond memories of Sims 2, but I play a lot of The Sims 3. And as the builder perspective, I loved all the mechanics in Sims 3. So, and the fact that their music is just everywhere. It's just hilarious.
Well, actually, talking about that, I love the soundtrack in these games. The
I like-
building, the building soundtrack in Sims 1 is still my favorite. Like, just music. Like, if I'm like cleaning, like doing like home improvement or cleaning, I'll have that playing in the background because it just fits so well.
Have you ever watched the videos on YouTube of the artists going in and recording their songs in Simlish?
I've seen some of those.
No.
They're so. Oh, look up the Katy Perry one. That one's good.
Okay.
I've seen the Paramore one. That's the interesting one.
Oh, it's really funny. They go into the studio and it's just them saying nonsense.
Yeah. Hey, it must be kind of fun because they're
Oh,
just
what?
like, there's no expectation.
I have to
I
look
can
this
just
up
say
now.
whatever.
What was the name of the song in Herbs? Because I found it yesterday and I thought it was the funniest thing.
Is it Let's Get It Started? Is that it?
Yeah, Let's Get It Started was changed to Garatada.
There you go.
Garadada.
I love that one. Well, I guess we can wrap it up here. Liv, did you want to plug all your stuff again?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It was a great time discussing The Sims. Always down to talk about it. So I'm from Between Two Gamers, and you can find us on all podcasting platforms. We have a link tree, which is linktree/Between Two Gamers. So original, where you can find all of our Between Two Gamers, and as well as Free and I's individual link trees.
Nice.
Nice.
Well, thank you again for joining us, Liv. This was fun.
Thank you.
And once again, to everybody else, the Gaming Collecting Podcast can be found on all your major podcasting platforms, particularly Apple Podcasts and Spotify. We're made on Anchor Podcast, and you can follow us on all the social media, Twitter, Instagram, Good Pods. And until next time, guys, we will see you all later.
Bye.
All right, have a good one, guys.
I can sip my drink now.